Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining the webinar. My name is Blake, and I'm going to be walking through a deep dive of the product today. This should take around 30 to 45 minutes, and we'll save some time at the end for any questions. So getting started, Front is a shared inbox for businesses to manage their external facing communication channels. We cover the gamut all the way from SMS text messages, Twitter, Facebook, all the way to live chat on your website, as well as any shared email addresses that your company manages, and you can even manage your own individual inbox in Front like I've done. I've added my Blake at frontapp.com and I live inside of Front all the time. I like to start the tour kind of in the middle here in the shared inboxes. So as I mentioned, you've got all of your shared channels here. Below that is your teammates. So you can see all the members of your team, their status online, away, etc. And these numbers next to their name representing the conversations that they're working on. Again, up at the top here, this is my workspace and everything to do with me and my work in Front. I've got it collapsed, but the inbox breaks down into a few parts. If you add your individual inbox into Front, which I suggest you do after a while once you get used to it for the shared inbox purposes, just note that when you're adding an individual inbox like I have with these 21 emails, members of my team by default aren't able to see those messages unless, of course, I mention them in the comment section, share it with them, and invite them into that conversation. So definitely something to keep in mind. Assigned to me is where conversations that are delegated to you live, and then shared with me are just conversations that could be delegated to someone else, but they've decided to share that conversation with you. So I'm going to start in the sales inbox, sales@frontapp.com. You'll see here we have 3 messages. This 3 right now is representing the 3 unassigned messages here in this second panel. Now you can change that if you want. There's little workspace options that you put here. So you can either collapse or unpin, if you will, different inboxes that you have access to keep a nice clean view. This is what I sort of look at on a day-to-day basis. I have access to other inboxes, of course, but these are the ones that I kind of keep an eye on. And then, of course, counters here. You can have that represent unassigned conversations as well as open conversations too. So I like to keep it in unassigned, and unassigned, basically think of those as new conversations that have come into the inbox that no one has delegated out yet. Open represents all of the sort of pending conversations that are in that inbox. So these are ones that haven't been deleted or archived yet. And then all would represent all conversations that are in the inbox, unassigned, open, and archived messages. Now this third panel here, this is where you can see the full body of the email. So the subject line, who it's from, who it's to, the full email. And then you've got your table stakes email features up here at the top, which we're all used to, archive, delete. And then we give you a new one up here called snooze. Snooze is a great way to just hide a message temporarily until a later time or date that you specify. So say, for instance, I'm on a webinar right now and I can't follow up with Jeff. I can just snooze the conversation for 30 minutes. And 30 minutes from now, that conversation will pop back up and we know to get back to Jeff. From here, I'd like to show you a few of the most powerful features of Front: real-time collaboration and assignments. So real-time collaboration starts down here at the bottom of every conversation, whether it's a text message, an email, Twitter post, whatever. In the comments section, this is where you can mention teammates to collaborate with them in real time. So if I type the @ symbol, I can find all of the members of my team. So I can say @Olivier, @Vishal, @Rachel, @Whitney. Hey team, can someone comment for a webinar? Now when I do that, the members of my team are going to be notified about it in their inbox. So basically a thread will pop up and they'll see, oh, Blake mentioned me. You can see now Olivier commenting back. Whenever teammates start typing, whether it's a comment or if someone on my team started jumping in, replying to that email right away, which you can absolutely do, just a free-for-all, all hands on deck sort of style, let's all jump in the inbox and get back to it. Because you're using Front, everything that's going on is in real time. So there's collision detection, right? You're gonna be able to see if another member of your team is replying or if they're commenting on the thread. There's Olivier commenting again. So if I wanted to, for instance, mention, hey, Olivier, or hey, Rachel, I'm going to assign this one to you, I can do that here. I'm going to actually do that right now. I'm going to say @Rachel, I will assign to you. And when I do this, Rachel's going to know, hey, I will assign the conversation to her, and I can do that here, this assign button up at the top. So I can find her here directly, or I can drag and drop the conversation and drop it right into her inbox. And I'm gonna do that right now. Boom. There you go. So the sales inbox went down from 2 to 1, and now I can see here there's 2 messages assigned to Rachel. If I click on Rachel, I can see those messages that she's working on. So there's a great amount of accountability that's involved within Front, because you can see, hey, the conversation was assigned to Rachel, and now you can follow up and see what she's done, right? All of these comments, all of the actions are gonna be a nice timeline view for you to see who's taking ownership of the message and what they've done from there. And there's just great visibility that's brought into this for the team. So everyone knows, hey, there's 25 messages here that teammates are working on, which is great. Kenji, for instance, I can see he's red right now. He might be out of office, for instance. I could jump in and respond to those 6 messages if I wanted to. Also worth noting, I'm green up here at the top. I'm available, but this feature I think is often not talked about enough. You can mark yourself as out of office, do not disturb. You can even set a do not disturb schedule. And the nice thing about this is if you're assigned a conversation, like Rachel is right now, if she went unavailable, out of office, turned herself red, and then Jeff followed up and said, hey, I need some help, I haven't heard from you guys, the conversation actually wouldn't stay assigned to Rachel because she's out of office and unavailable. That conversation would pop back up into the sales inbox unassigned for one of us to jump in and help with. I think it's a really great feature. Next, I'd like to show you tags. So within Front, you can tag conversations. You can either create a new tag right here, or you can type up a tag and find that here. So VIP customer, I tag those. I can create a tag right now here for us. New tag, we'll call it webinar March. I can highlight the tag. Maybe there's a clover. Is there a clover? March, St. Patty's Day, my birthday coming up. Cool, so there's a tag. That's how you create them. You can click to easily remove on them. Later on in this webinar, I'm gonna show you guys the analytics section, which you can navigate to down here. And the analytics are gonna be a great way to track tags and track tag frequency over time. Now, I'm gonna reply to this conversation in a minute just to show you guys, hey, this is the composer, this is how you do it. You can, of course, type up your messages here. You should also look at creating canned responses. So there's the Command-Shift-O little shortcut that you've got there. But if you click the canned responses button, you can type up a couple letters and you can find a commonly used canned response. So if I type in Slack, for instance, here, I can find a bunch of different things around Slack. Here's a canned response about how we use Slack. Slack works well with Front, yada, yada. Canned responses are great. I know I created a bunch of them for myself when I joined, and other teammates have started to use them, make them their own. And even if you type up a great response about Slack right now, you could save the canned response, for instance, for later use. Additionally, you have all of the table stakes features that you're used to. You can attach files, you can do anything that you need with formatting. We also have this reminder feature. So reminder is a little bit like snooze, which I showed you earlier. Think about snooze for inbound messages and reminders for outbound messages. So if I send this message to Jeff, I can say, I know Slack, it's great with Front. Did this help? Now, when I send this message off to Jeff, if Jeff doesn't get back to me by the time that I've designated here, say a week or maybe tomorrow by a certain time, this email will actually pop back up into my inbox. It'll show, hey, time to follow up with Jeff. It will even tell you if there's a read receipt on there and Jeff's been able to read and open your message. So reminders are a great way to stay on top of things from a variety of different standpoints, whether you're in sales, whether you're in support or operations. It's just a great way to make sure that you never drop the ball and you're following up on anything that's important. This little icon here, this actually allows you to share drafts and collaborate together. So if I click share draft, I can then again invite teammates into this draft. So I can say, hey, at Olivier, at Rachel, can one of you edit this draft? So again, they're gonna get notified. They're gonna see, oh, Blake's typing here, here's his draft. If one of them is online, looks like Olivier is, look, he's gonna make some changes to this, similar to like a Google Doc, right? You can't edit at the same time. You've gotta kind of pass ownership of a conversation back and forth sort of if you will. There's Olivier editing, and he's going to put in a link right here, and then I can, for instance, just send that off. While he's doing that, I want to show you guys up at the top here, you can see what participants have access to this conversation and which ones are viewing the conversation. So you can see Olivier reading now, Nate read it 19 minutes ago, and Rachel hasn't actually read this thread. That's a pretty cool feature. I showed you a sign earlier. This other one's pretty sweet. So it shows which inbox it's in, but you can actually move messages to different inboxes. So just this morning, a message came into the sales inbox for us that was actually meant for the support queue. What I did was I clicked here, typed in support, and I sent the message over to support tier 1. I can also just drag and drop that. Works extremely well. Looks like Olivier is done with my draft. I can edit from here, say cheers. Maybe I know Jeff and I'm pretty friendly with him, and I can send my message along. So that just shows like the level of collaboration that you have, the assignments that you can do. That's all great. Now, another thing that I wanted to touch on are the integrations within Front. I think we have close to 50 integrations at this point, and some of our strongest ones actually live inside of the 4th panel here. So this little arrow in the top right actually expands and collapses. I've got Salesforce open. I work in a sales capacity here at Front, and I use Salesforce all the time. But because of my Front license, I can actually see the Salesforce integration and all the information that we have about this customer within Salesforce. So for instance, I would be able to know, hey, Rachel is the owner on the account. Maybe I shouldn't send this, and maybe I should ask Rachel if it's okay if I send this response. All the fields that you could imagine are editable here. We use custom fields, custom objects, all work, and you can actually make changes and edits to these numbers and these fields on the go. So maybe this opportunity is going to be a little bit larger. I can actually change the close date and change the amount right here from within Front. Click save. And if I was to pop into Salesforce, which I'm not going to, but those changes would then be reflected on the opportunity there in Salesforce. Salesforce isn't the only integration we offer. Here's just a quick peek at all of the other integrations that we're offering here, or at least some of the ones that we have enabled here on the Front side. HubSpot, for instance, is another common one. So you can see, if you're using HubSpot, you can see all the information about Jeff there. I can maybe mention Mike T on this and see if Mike has any questions. Worth noting as well that Front has recently launched a calendar integration. So you can actually have your own work calendar inside of Front. So you can see here, I've got my webinar right now. The last thing I'm going to mention here is HQ. So HQ is actually our own custom back office tool that we use here at Front. We built it from scratch. I think we built it on React. It actually holds all of our customer data and customer information. So when a trial signs up, we can see these many teammates were added, these many inboxes were added. We have nice features to see how many days people have left in a trial. So the point being here is that you can build on top of Front. Think of Front as a platform or a dashboard in which you can run your entire business. Once you have integrated, some of the software subscriptions that you use, say Asana, Salesforce, JIRA, you can add those into Front. And then if you have any of your own proprietary tools that you've built in-house, try and link those back up into Front as well. This whole custom plugins area, we allow you to edit and change whatever you need to, integrate with Zapier, webhooks. So really the sky's the limit on what you can do. If you have any questions or you have any interest in that, you can go to dev.frontapp.com and check out everything here. And if you get stuck, we have some nice guides that we can send over. Feel free to email us directly, api@frontapp.com, and we can send you all the information you need on that. I mentioned Asana and JIRA. I don't want to click away before I highlight that. So next to the tag section here, this is actually where those integrations live. All of these integrations work generally the same. These are issue tracking, bug tracking tools. And what this does is allows you to link conversations, actual customer conversations, to those issues that are happening in the back end inside of JIRA, inside of GitHub, for instance. The nice thing about that is when your team, your dev team, your engineering team, your design team has questions about the ticket or the issue that they're seeing in JIRA, they can actually link back into Front, check out the conversation directly from the client to get a little bit more information. Say this conversation was archived or closed out, and we say, hey Jeff, thanks for reporting this bug. I've logged it into Asana, which you can easily do here. You can either create a new task or attach it to an existing task. All sorts of options here on linking to a project. We use Trello sometimes too, so you can link it to a board, for instance. Say we close the conversation, say, hey Jeff, we're gonna look into this bug and we'll get back to you. We archive the conversation. When that bug is fixed or the issue is resolved or the feature is launched, once that happens inside JIRA, GitHub, Trello, etc., this conversation in front will actually reopen. So my team will be able to see in the thread line, hey, this conversation has been reopened by a closed JIRA ticket, which is excellent because our number count will go up and we'll see, hey, what's this new conversation? Oh, this is that one from Jeff where he mentioned, hey, he'd like to see this feature, or he's having real trouble with this certain bug. This helps you close the loop and get back to this person and really keep the customer facing and the non-customer facing teams all kind of marching to the same beat. I think the only thing I didn't mention here is that send and archive is kind of the default. We recommend sending and archive by default. The messages then live in the all section and kind of don't clutter up your inbox count. But if you'd like, you can just regularly send if you want to. You can also send later, so you can have a message kind of just sit in your drafts until you're ready to send it out. Also worth noting that if you jump in and you reply to a thread, the conversation is assigned to you by default. So any subsequent replies from Jeff would just live up here in my inbox assigned to me. Top left here, this is where I've got my notification center. Let us know if you want to turn those on or off. You can get some nice notifications. And this pencil here actually allows you to compose outbound messages. So you can decide who you want to compose from, and you can use Front, again, as a full-fledged email client. I've got some tags pinned right here, so if I wanted to actually move a message to one of these, I can do that. Next, I'd love to walk you guys through the analytics section. So the analytics are right here. Analytics are extremely powerful. They're going to let you see a nice overview of everything that's going on within your front environment. It's going to allow you to track trends and notice changes that are happening. And you can make changes to your business accordingly. So again, it works like the inbox view we were just in. Everything flows left to right. We're looking at the team report here. So this is everything, including Twitter, Facebook, any sort of random email addresses that we've hooked up into Front, like press at, marketing at, etc. So some of these analytics might look a little wonky, but play along with me here. You can create custom reports here to report on whatever you'd like, whether it's a specific team, department, tag, or inbox. You can do that here. We're going to stick to just the team report for now. Up at the top, you've got a conversation view, a team view, productivity view, and a customer view. You can set the date range in which you want to be tracking. You can set business hours, which of course will affect analytics. And you can always export analytics, either manually through a downloaded CSV, or you can use our API to constantly pull information. So on the conversation side, we're looking at the current period. You can look at it versus the previous period here by just toggling back and forth. And if you scroll down, you can see the total number of conversations, busiest day, busiest time of day, and then you can also see the tags and how your tags are looking. So how many conversations have been tagged with a specific tag, how many messages per conversation. So is it a really tricky one that requires a lot of back and forth, or is it kind of an easier one? Good things to track there. The team view is next. So this is going to give you kind of more of the help center sort of, or the help desk, I should say, information that you might be looking for. So you've got a leaderboard up at the top here to show you kind of reaction time on conversations, total conversations that are being handled. Looks like Corey and Kenji on our support team, not surprisingly, are towards the top, but Laurent here, our CTO, kicking butt. Replies sent is also an interesting one. And if you scroll down, you can see a full list of everyone. Here I am, 52 conversations last week. 7.4 messages per conversation. My reaction time is 1 hour and 40 minutes. Total messages 228. Pretty interesting stuff that you wouldn't otherwise get if you're using something like Outlook or Gmail. Productivity is an interesting one. This is going to give you, again, some high-level metrics overview of everything that's going on within your environment. So response time, resolution time. It's actually not bad considering we're looking at Twitter, Facebook, and all of the different channels that don't necessarily have an SLA. Looking pretty good here. And then customers. This is actually going to show you a little bit more about individuals. So that's about it for analytics. I'm going to then quickly jump over to our contact manager down here in the bottom left. So the contact manager will allow you to upload all of your contacts into Front and create contact groups. And I think contact groups are the biggest part about the contact manager that I really like. Later on in this demonstration, I'm going to walk you through some rules, some example rules that can help you create some pretty cool workflows. And you can create them based on whether or not a contact is in a contact group that we've designated here. So you can basically drag individuals to a group and then create rules around whether an inbound message, for instance, is from someone within a group, say VIP customers. These three dots here allow you to see a cool feature that often goes unnoticed, the audit trail. So if you wanted to see everything going on in Front right now in real time, you can do that. You can narrow down by a specific inbox. We'll say sales, and then we'll look at Blake, for instance. You can do that. Here was us just a few minutes ago commenting on a thread. And then the last one here is sequences. So Front actually does allow you to send a lightweight sequence up to 200 recipients per day on an inbox. And you just create simple stages. Step 1, send this message at this time. Step 2, send this message at this time. Just upload a CSV file of up to 200 recipients, and you're good to go there. Go back to the inbox view. In the top left, your little icon, that's gonna take you to your settings. But of course, if you ever have any questions, you can click the Help Center. This will take you there. You can talk to us, which will open up a chat. You can recommend Front to a friend. Hopefully you guys are all pretty familiar with Front at this point and want to recommend Front to friends. Feel free to do that. Here you can see what's new, a sort of change log, guide to new Front, which is interesting, and you can also sign out here. I'm gonna hop into the settings. So starting at the top here on the left-hand side, this is everything to do with me. It's commonly missed, but these top options are all related to me, my work on Front, and my preferences. So I can change my username, for instance, change my email, 2FA, set that all up here. My inboxes, as I mentioned earlier, I have added my individual inbox, blake@frontapp.com, into Front. I love it. I love having it there. Another feature that you can do as well, if you're practicing some real transparency within your organization, is delegate your inbox to teammates. So I've actually delegated my inbox to our CEO, Mathilde. So Mathilde actually has access to all of the messages coming in and out of my inbox. No pressure. If you are a sales team or an operations team, maybe a teammate of yours goes on vacation or an extended leave of absence, you can delegate your inbox to them so they can jump in and help as needed. And they would, of course, be replying as themselves, but assisting you in your work. You can create your own rules in Front. You can see here I've got a lot of my own rules, most of them around tagging, some of them around moving messages or sending canned responses, which is pretty unique. You can also create your own tags in Front. This is pretty fun. If you want to stay super organized, definitely encourage you to use tags. Our tags, honestly, for the individual purposes, work just like folders. So if you're familiar with folders in Outlook or labels in Gmail, Front's tags work exactly the same way. My preferences, this allows you to change some things. So for instance, my theme is dark. I like it dark, but I can make it light. And that of course changes the theme there. Nice little feature. Hopefully we do a full dark theme soon. I know that's a commonly requested feature and I'm on board with you guys on that one too. There's all sorts of features here that you should look at in terms of customizing your preferences and make Front work for you. For instance, I have Gmail shortcuts turned off. I've got kind of fat fingers, make mistakes. I don't want to have those on, but some people love them, so just turn them on, click save, and you're good to go there. Again, really encourage you to play around with these preferences because there's a lot of different permutations of what you can do here, and customizing Front to make it work best for you is something I highly recommend spending 5 to 10 minutes doing. It can save you so much time in the long run. My responses, again, is another on that same vein. Create canned responses or templates for yourself. I always do that. I've got a bunch of them myself and even more on the team side that I've created for my team. They're used constantly. My signatures, when you join front, you're gonna need to set up your signature. You can change that here. I've got all my old signatures here. And then notifications. Notifications are important. We have smart notifications enabled. So when you join front, we say, hey, this is what we think are gonna be your best notification setup. But you let us know. You can actually even change, if you want, some advanced notification settings if you prefer specific configurations. Also worth noting, we've got desktop, mobile, and email here. Front works on the web app. I'm in the Chrome web app right now, but it also works on desktop. So if you like desktop apps, you're covered with Front. It works on Mac, works on PC. We also have mobile apps. So if you're on, Android, iPad, iPad Pro, download the app. You're gonna love it. So moving on the company side, this is where you can manage teams, for instance. So within Front, you can see we've got a bunch of different teams that we're running. Our enterprise feature actually allows for the creation of teams. And you can look here on the left-hand side at some of the teams that we've created. Teams work well if you're gonna have a full company on Front. We've got almost 120 employees now across a bunch of different departments, and we've made those different teams on Front. Teammates will allow you to add and delete teammates, invite them to join. And if you are a super admin on the account, you're gonna be able to decide which inboxes that they have access to, which teams that they're gonna be on, and even set different levels of roles and permissions, which is pretty cool down here. Roles and permissions allow you to basically customize anything that this person can do within Front, anything they can and cannot do, I should say. Contacts, this is where you can go to edit your contacts, add custom fields to contacts. Important to keep your contacts organized inside of Front. Integrations, if you want to enable an integration, like I've mentioned, there's 45 plus integrations here. So if you see any of these and you use any of these internally, I highly encourage you to turn those on and play around with them. Integrations plus Front really take this to the next level. Plugins and API right here. As I mentioned on that right-hand side, that fourth panel, HQ, this is where you'd go to create those. And then you've got company-wide preferences. We're gonna be adding to this a little bit more, so you're gonna have more company-wide preferences that you can set. For instance, session idle timeouts, conversations being moved to different inboxes, bump and reopen conversations. Play around with these. Certain teams and certain different departments will have specific preferences that they like and they dislike. So be sure to check here if there's anything that you think might be able to be changed or optimized. The billing section, of course, here, only available to super admins. Some deliverability settings that you can play around with if you want to take a look. And then I want to actually walk you guys through rules, for instance, down here. Rules are incredibly powerful. They let you optimize processes and create workflows. So everything that I've kind of showed you around tagging, moving messages, replying with canned responses, all of that was manual, but I'm going to show you how to quickly make that an automated process within Front's rules engine. So I can create a rule here. We'll call it VIP customer SLA. So say, for instance, just as an example, we have a SLA agreement with our VIP customers that we're going to get back to them within 10 minutes. So I'm going to create a rule that says when an inbound message comes into Front, rules work conditionally, by the way. If this happens, then do that action. So just walk through it logically, think through it. I recommend starting slow and building on these rules over time. So we're going to say when an inbound message comes in, and if the inbox is, I like that, support tier 1, and or, good to keep in mind the difference is, we're going to say and the contact is in our VIP customer group, and it's unreplied after 5 minutes, then let's move to an inbox urgent. Urgent's kind of our last 4th tier line of defense. We have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and then urgent. We're going to add another action to add a tag to that. Maybe at the end of the week, we want to see how many times conversations actually hit this rule. We can add a tag to say VIP customer. And then let's add an action to notify our head of customer support, Kenji. Boom. Now, if I was to save that rule, that's a pretty powerful rule, right? Let's look at this again. VIP customer SLA. When an inbound message comes into our support queue and the contact is in our VIP customer contact group, which I showed in the contact manager, and it's unreplied after 5 minutes, then let's move it to urgent. So move it out of the generic kind of tier 1 queue and go, okay, this is a VIP customer, we're moving it to urgent. Add the tag VIP customer and notify Kenji. It's a pretty powerful rule. There is almost an unlimited amount of combinations that you can do here. If you come up with a rule that you can't get going right off the bat, let us know. There's potentially a workaround or a way that you can get that rule working. And I should also note that down here at the bottom, when you see send to Salesforce, send to Slack, send to a webhook, send to Zapier, I mean, the sky's the limit when it comes to these things. We've seen some customers do some really crazy things where, messages, for instance, that are coming inbound, it'll assign based on Salesforce ownership, for instance. That's a pretty cool one. Or trigger in PagerDuty, send a notification to a group of folks about something going on. So these are pretty cool. You can do, again, a variety of different combinations there. If the from contains a specific email address, or if the body contains a specific keyword. Again, I encourage you to play around with these, test them out, of course. Any rule that you think would be useful for you before pushing it into production, thinking, okay, let's rely on that rule, test it first to make sure it works. Again, ask us if you have any questions around rules. Super powerful, and if you're not playing around with the rules yet and not optimizing, you're not getting the max value you can out of front today. I'm going to leave the rules here. I think that about does it for the tour. As I mentioned, we're going to spend around 30 minutes right on the dot, 32 minutes in here. I'm going to jump into the questions in the chat and see if we can open that up. Okay, nothing in the chat. Let me see if we've got some questions. Okay, here we go. Here's some questions. First question, can I set an automatic message when the person does not answer? So for an email that you send out, can you set up an email to trigger next? So for instance, you're going to send a response and then you want another response to go out after that if they don't reply. To my knowledge, not possible yet today, but with canned responses, reminders, and keyboard shortcuts, you can probably get something back out as a follow-up in under 10 seconds. Great question. Next question. So an entire workflow can be designed. Sorry if I don't have I wasn't looking at these questions while I was walking through it, so these questions might be a little bit dated or out of order, but I will say that yes, an entire workflow can be designed, and not only for a specific team, but for an entire company. A lot of our processes internally are based around how we use front. Next question. Can you set to approve emails from your N+1? Not sure what N+1 means, but you can create a process where team members can't send messages. So for that, you can create a process where a team member would only be able to draft a response, for instance, and a specific member of the team can send the response. That is 100% possible. Next question here, difference between assigned versus shared. Great question. Assigned is actually when you've been delegated that message. So for instance, I have assigned this message to Rachel, but this one has been shared with her. So if she was to see in her inbox, she would see that first message assigned and the second message shared. So the assignment is sort of an onus of responsibility. Hey, you are responsible for sending this message. Next question, can you go over sequences again? Sure, happy to do it. So here's where you go to sequences, and I would create a new sequence. I could call it webinar test sequence. I want to send it from my inbox. I'm not going to CC or BCC anyone. Sender name, I'll make it myself. I'm going to create a new sequence. Ooh. Here we go. I would then upload a CSV. I'm not sure if I have a CSV ready to go, but I can do that one. Note you do have to format it correctly, so it has to have a specific column. You know what I can do is I can go over to our help center. That's also going to have some good screenshots on how to set up sequences. So you're definitely going to need to make sure that you've got the CSV file ready to go. Make sure it's email, name, pretty straightforward. And then when you're sending these messages, you're going to be able to, inside of this, decide which recipients you want to send this to, which ones you don't. When you're creating the stages here, you can give it a subject line. You can use variables, of course, which is pretty useful when you're sending sequences. Type your message. You can use canned responses as well. And you can decide when you want to send the message out on. You can add a stage. You can, of course, send a test sequence if you want to test it just to make sure before you send. You can keep the same subject line for the second one, or you can change it as well. And then just click Start Sequence. Next questions. What is the difference with rules? Not sure what that means. There's a lot of differences that you can do with rules to change things up, but rules are available on our premium and our enterprise plans. Nice one from Roland. Thank you for the introduction. Of course, my pleasure. If you have any questions after that, please let me know. Your boss. Okay, yeah, this was from Elizabeth, I think, from her question earlier. Can you set to approve emails from your N+1? Yeah, you can create a workflow like that. So essentially, your teammate would be able to create a draft and write that up, and you would give them the role of just teammate where they couldn't send responses, and then you could mention your boss, or they can mention your boss, their boss, and they can send out that message for them. I'm not sure if there's like a formal, check mark so that teammate can then send out the message. I'd have to dig into that for you to see if there's any workaround or solution or a feature request that's in progress for that. But that would be the way I would recommend doing it today, would be able to create a rule, and then the teammate needs to mention you on that conversation before you send it out. We've got our questions here from Adam. Are there any limitations to the app, i.e. certain features available within the online app are not available in the mobile app? Sort of an open-ended question, but our team travels quite a bit. No, it's a good question. The specific limitations I'm not privy to particularly, like off the top of my head, but there will be some limitations, for instance, within the mobile app versus the desktop or the web app. Off the top of my head, sequences aren't going to be available, rules aren't going to be available, analytics aren't going to be available. I don't think you can add or delete inboxes on mobile. You can't enable integrations on the mobile phone, but you're able to see all the inboxes, you're able to compose emails, you're going to be able to sign comments, you're going to be able to set yourself out of office. There are some settings that you can play around with, but the full functionality, of course, of the desktop or web apps aren't offered on the mobile app for a variety of reasons, one of them being space for sure. Next question, is there going to be a way to customize / standardize fonts between notes and the message composer? I believe there will be in the future ways that you can sort of standardize across everything what font is going to be. I know that it's for now an individual user preference, where when you're composing inside the composer, you can set what font you want to have, and then you can kind of make that your default font, set as default style. So for instance, if I wanted to be trebuchet, huge, pink, just be obnoxious, and make this my my default style, I could do that, for instance. But that's an individual user preference right now. I don't believe that that is possible. I should be careful that I didn't save that for a real email, but I don't think that there's a way that you can preference out as a company-wide preference what the font will be, but that's a good feature request, and I can definitely flag that and run it up the flagpole. Great idea, Tina. Next question, are sequences possible to send in existing / ongoing conversations? So no, I don't believe they are. I believe you need to compose like a fresh sequence and send out from step one, day one. I don't think it's possible to drop new users into existing sequences, for instance, but that is another great idea and a feature request that likely will be coming down the pipeline soon. Next question is from Dave. Can we contact you directly if we think of questions after the seminar? This is Nicole, shout out from FitBody. Hi, Nicole, thank you so much for joining and appreciate the shout out. Yeah, you can send me an email directly, blake@frontapp.com. I know we've got a lot of different people on this webinar, whether it's a current customer or folks that are just evaluating. So depending on who's managing the relationship, I can step in, or I can definitely route your question to the proper contact who can absolutely get back to you. So if you have any questions, you can email me directly, blake@frontapp.com, or you can email partners@frontapp.com, support@frontapp.com. We've got all of them open. Lines of communication are open, so feel free to write in. Okay, next question. As long as you didn't send the email with your new default, it won't change your preferences. Correct. Yes. So if you made some changes to your email and you made a thread, a specific thread, it'll save it. But if you don't save your default style, it won't do that. We got a next question from Olivier. Can you segment the recipients of sequences inside of Front? So if I'm understanding your question correctly, you can theoretically, when you're uploading the CSV file, you can decide which kind of segment or group you're going to be sending to. You can absolutely do that. That's what you can do in terms of segmenting. Again, the sequence tool is pretty lightweight. I wouldn't expect it to replace a tool like MailChimp for you, for instance, or some kind of large outbound marketing tool. It works really well if you're a startup or small company just sending a quick newsletter, or if you've got some VIP clients or VIP partners you want to notify about an upcoming launch or promotion. It'll work really well for that. Thank you from Dave. You are most welcome, Dave. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, so unless there are any questions, looks like there's no more. Thank you guys so much for joining. As I mentioned, I was going to get you guys out of here between 30-45 minutes. We're right on the dot, 45 minutes. Thank you for joining. If you have any questions at all, feel free to email directly, either myself or the team. We'll be sure to get back to you. And because you signed up, a recording will be sent to you automatically to review at your leisure. Thank you guys so much. Have a good rest of your day.